Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's virtual summit, the next level of scaling and customer success, brought to you by Technology Services Industry Association.
Next speaker, I'm going to hand it over to Guy Nirpaz, who's the CEO and founder of Totango. He's going to be walking through all of the Totango innovations around digital and some of their great product innovations that they've released to their community. So Guy, let me hand it over to you.
So my name is Guy Nirpaz. I'm the founder and CEO of Totango. And I want to share with you some of my learnings. I think, as Tony said, the last 3 months emphasized a lot, and I would like to walk you through it. The title of the presentation is The New Customer Success is Digital and Dynamic. So I'm going to start with making a claim and putting an observation for all of you to consider. And then I'm going to switch into talking about my story in customer success and our recent experience, both with our customers and internally within Totango. And I'm going to share some learnings. We're going to leave 5 minutes at least for Q&A, so I hope you'll find this interesting. You see the background here. I think the last 90 days or so, I basically skipped a generation. What we're seeing right now is that we have basically introduced a new way, or we learned a new way to do business, specifically in customer success. It is about digital and dynamic. And it not only results in cost saving and more efficient way of doing business, it basically introduces a business model that also results in a much better user experience that, and you've heard this from Tony, that customers give great feedback on. I think one of the key changes is the switch from cutting travel and corporate travel and commute. Basically, companies are able to deliver a much higher frequency of touch points at a much lower cost. And I think the feedback the market is giving, the initial feedback, is very, very good. Now I want to talk about my journey in customer success, mine and Totango, and then tied back to the claim. So I've started Totango 10 years ago out of Tel Aviv. I'm now based at the Bay Area. The company is global. We've got over 1,000 customers. We've been able to work with some of the best companies in the world and get very great results. And you can see them here. Some of them were born on a more of a traditional high-touch model of customer success. Some of them were more of the high-velocity business companies like Zoom or Trustpilot, as an example. And one of the things that we've been asking ourselves, if these results are so tangible and so great, why we're not seeing any company in the world, any business in the world, using customer success technology, and specifically from our perspective, Totango, to drive a much better experience for the customers, drive the necessary outcomes. So we went to the market and started asking specific questions. So Phil had a slide, which was, if you remember the navigation slide, we have it in a different format, but when we talk about customer success and what is the customer journey, it's true. It's not uniform, and there's a lot of diversity of the customer journey depending on the product, the size of the company, the size of the buyer, the contract type, and so forth. And while most companies start with onboarding, as they acquire new customers, they onboard them or they onboard them to a new product, from that point onwards, it varies. What you're seeing on this slide is a data collection that we've done on our customers in Totango, basically trying to figure out, when you say customer success and when you use Totango, what is it exactly that you do? And as you can see, almost everyone is doing the onboarding and escalation, but from that point onward, it varies quite significantly. Another feedback that we've got is that although the concept of customer success is simple, there's all sorts of friction points in being able to adopt. I think the first one, the way I tell it to the team, and some of you may have heard me, is the basic notion of buying customer success today. You got to have PhD in customer success in order to be able to actually buy it. You have to understand the method, the methodology, the model, You got to have a team. You got to have a vision within your company, and only then you can buy it. So the getting started is difficult. It's not trivial. Secondly, being a provider of customer success technology, all providers of customer success technology did not allow for free access to those products, and for that reason, you could only see customer success technology if you were serious and ready to buy. The second component there about access is, as Keith said, data is critical in customer success. It all starts with data. So, how do you connect? How do you get the data to be available and accessible and usable? And it usually sounds very intimidating within companies, going through multiple stakeholders that have control over the data. So that deters companies from getting started. The second point that most people, here it's number 3 on the slide, is mapping your engagement model, mapping your journey. Some companies have it buttoned up, and all they need is to turn this into a technological version of, or digital version of the journey. Some don't even have it, and they need to come up with the engagement model. And also there's some reputation of some of the, or concerns that people have about onboarding and iterations might be scary and intimidating. The results are not necessarily timely, could take years to get the results. I don't think this is the case, but I'm saying this is the perception that a lot of buyers in the market had, and how to get organizational traction in the beginning, how to maintain organizational support through own. These are all concerns that we've heard from the market, and we were set to solve, because again, when we look at what we've been able to work with some of the most innovative companies in the world, we've seen amazing success, but on the other hand, it didn't translate that easily into the broader set of the market. So from Totango perspective, we thought we need to provide a solution for that. So we went back to the drawing board, I would say 18 months ago, 24 months ago, to think about what would it look to solve those issues. And one of the things that, it's very relevant for today, but one of the things that we've seen, if you look on the left-hand side, the work that is needed to ramp a customer success initiative, no matter where it is on the customer lifecycle, whether it's onboarding, adoption, renewal, expansion, or all across, the part of technology was minimal, and the rest of it was pretty much people-driven. So a people-driven model, both for implementation purposes, setting up the technology, and at the same time, from an organization perspective, a lot of companies believe that they need to start with the digital model of customers, with the people-driven model for customer success. You've seen before the triangle. So for key accounts, you have people that are taking care of those, and then for the portfolio accounts, you have people taking care of those. Phil called this the enhanced model, and for the bottom, you have Tech Touch, but Tech Touch was definitely not the common model. And one of the things that we've recognized, that if we want to make it simple and easy to get started, get going, and change, we got to change the mix. So the technology needs to do more, and then there needs to be a set of digital capabilities that packages the best practices, everything that you're seeing on the screen. Hopefully you can see it well. The best practices, the out-of-the-box proven solution, the self-paced implementation, the performance, and so forth. And the part of people augments that. So moving from people-based delivery model from Totango perspective, and also people-based customer success to a digital-first customer success, it was clear that that's the starting point. So that's more kind of theoretical. Now let's switch into specifics, specific changes that we've implemented to solve that. So the first thing that we thought we have to do is, in order to enable the buyers in the enterprise and in the small market to experiment and learn customer success, we got to switch the business model into a freemium business model. So the way I came up, I grew up in data. I grew up in open source projects, and to me it was very similar in the sense that many open source, technology open source products, and there are great companies that make a lot of money, start with a free available edition. And the reason, it allows the customer to learn on their own time when they're ready to learn. It allows them to even build prototypes, and only when they're ready to get a different level of SLA, they become a potential buyer. So all the learning aspect of customer success from Totango's perspective, removing the barriers, basically giving users within enterprises or within SMBs access. So we launched in the beginning of the year a free community editions that allows anyone to simply go and on the web experiment and learn both the technology but also customer success and the concept that are there. The second big component that we have heard as a big issue is the process management or the engagement model. How do I get started? What is the right model for me to get started? And there've been a lot of work from many great organizations. TSIA published their model. Cisco, for their partners, published their model. I wrote a book called Farm Don't Hunt, which is basically Totango methodology for that. And there are many others. But there was no a packaged model for those processes. So we came up with this idea that you can actually digitize the engagement model. So here's the business process for digital onboarding, or here's the business process for project-based onboarding, and so forth and so forth. We call those digital components success blocks, but we publish them in a public marketplace that is organized by, gives a lot of starting points for customer experiences, initiatives, and journeys. And when you want to think what would an enterprise find in the marketplace, and the marketplace is just getting started. We've got 25 success blocks there, but this is where this is going. It has organization of processes around digital engagement, the classic customer success, like customer 360, early warning system, health, revenue related, customer experience related, journey related, and even methodology related. Phil, I've named you here because I know we're gonna finalize the agreement here soon. But basically, the idea is to put all the methodologies available for implementation, for simply click and run. And we also wanted to remove the fear of our organization to get started. So we wanted to commit to a predictable results within weeks. No more many months or years of implementation. So we've built the way those success blocks, which you can think about them as applications, are implemented. They come with their own connection to the necessary data that is needed. Companies can configure what they need, and then they click activate, and it starts running their process. It's very much data driven, so there's a lot of there's a scorecard that allows you to measure the performance against goals and optimize. And because all of this process is digitized, it basically allows for iterations and removes the risk of big unpredictable projects. Additionally, we've one of the key challenges, I believe, of customer success, from our perspective of companies getting customer success is, do they have the team in place already, right? If they have the team in place and it's centralized, it's easy. If they have the team in place and it's distributed, it's not as easy, but still available. But if they don't have a team in place, then it becomes very tricky to implement customer success initiative, because again, the pyramid concept, you got to have team assignment, almost equivalent to sales. And we really like what Phil came up with last year with this model. So Phil, this is just our designer's spin on your slides, but it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same model. And we came up with this idea of dynamic assignment as a feature in the product, which basically means that you can define the experts that are going to respond to customer needs if needed, in based on their skill and fit and location and so forth. But it's just going to be an enhancement of the digital program. So all of these activities are basically designed. So Totango internally have adopted heavily high emphasis on digital in order, in our case, remove the friction in the market to allow people to get started. And that's very similar to things that we've seen with the best companies in the world that we've been working with. So here's I want to share with you my observations on the learning, because even for a company that was born for customer success like Totango, we've learned a lot going through this process of basically digitizing the entire customer journey in order to solve a business problem that I've described. So I would say the first point here is that in order to digitize customer experience, you need to think about consumer-grade user experience and flows, both from a user experience or UI in the product, but also from the way users experience your service and the handover from digital to human and so forth. I've also noticed that as we went through this process, and although we are a much smaller company than SAP and some of the companies that are going to present here, it forces the company to think customer flow first versus functional execution first. And it's a very hard transition for the organization. It needs to be carefully managed, and the best way to do it is start small and visualize the experiences you're trying to optimize, put some metrics against them, and allow to see the performance. I believe you cannot do digital journey transformation if you're not data-driven. First, because the initial setup that we put in place is probably wrong. It's directionally right, but there's a lot of nuances that will need to be optimized. And the only way to do it is to look at data on a daily and weekly basis, learn from that, and make a necessary adjustment. Data could be feedback from customers. Data could be measurement of conversion. Data could be anything that you are trying to optimize for to a specific result. And I kind of mentioned this in point number one. It is switching to a digital journey. I think it's more of a conceptual change than the actual work. It requires the company to think outside in versus inside out, and it's not something that if you haven't done this before, it is just takes a little bit of getting used to it in order to implement that. So that's the first point that I want to share with you. The second thing is it's never too early. Nobody could have predicted COVID-19, but we were fortunate that we've started this journey 18 months before, because that allowed us to basically double down on that and implement a lot of the business through the digital model. We had two models. We have the classical enterprise model, and we've added the digital model. We merged them together. We doubled down on that. And I've heard this from a lot of our customers that digital resiliency or business resiliency is almost an acronym today. If you want to be able to continue operating and have a business model that is COVID-19 or other disasters resilient, you need to have the model that is enhanced by people and not is driven only by people. The last point is, not the last point, number 3 is about agility and learning. So this entire model is about agility and learning. As I mentioned before, most of our initial assumptions were were not correct. The way we've designed the initial flows of user activation and user consumption and try to kind of figure out how to get started and self-service onboarding were directionally right, as I said, but they were not right. And we've been able to iterate quite significantly because all of our operating model was digital. We for sure used our own product to do it, but we had the opportunity to make quick changes. The way our team works, and I'm extremely proud of that, these user experience projects are not being run by the executive team of the company. There's an operating team that has their goals and marching orders, and they have the metrics. They meet daily. It's a cross-functional team. They look at scorecards and dashboards. They make decisions, and they make weekly and bi-weekly changes. And that's what allows to do this, the speed of change. I know that even our largest customers, because SAP was on stage, I'll mention them by name, are also running monthly iterations. I think it's critical to the mindset of digital. I think this is one of the values of having a digital motion driven by digital technology. And lastly, I would say that it wasn't obvious for us, especially when we were so many years focused on targeting, and still are targeting, the enterprise market of customer success. It wasn't obvious for us to come up with a freemium model. I can share with you the countless hours of internal debates about cannibalism of the enterprise market. We ended up going with that, and ultimately, I would say that we've launched the freemium model at the beginning of the year. First 6 months of 2020, I can tell you, and I'll share with you some facts. The customer success market loves freemium, especially the enterprise customer success market loves freemium. What we've been able to accomplish, a few metrics, we've been able to accomplish on the first quarter of the year, which was including March, which was the COVID month. The number of it's called MQLs, marketing qualified leads, in our case signups to the freemium edition, was 4x, four times bigger than what we had in Q4, which was a pre-COVID year. Additionally, we even going through the last 90 days of COVID, we didn't see decrease in demand. We actually see an increase in demand month over month in the last 6 months. And the reason, it allowed the enterprise buyers and the customer success teams that are now remote and at home to experiment, build their own POCs if they want to, or even build their own customer success setup on Totango without the need to synchronize meetings and so forth, and face-to-face meetings. So ultimately, I would say that going digital, both internally and both with our customers, has proven to be a very both inspiring, but I would say also teaching experience. And I think that now that we've skipped a generation, basically, we've got Zoom as one of our customers. They're basically, their demand is skyrocketed to spheres that we haven't seen before. I think the new experience, as Tony said, and I wholeheartedly agree with him, is digital. And if you haven't started, I would highly recommend it to you. Will get going on it. So this is my pitch here, and Phil, happy to take questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Guy. I appreciate the presentation. I'm going to try and take a couple of these here in the next couple of minutes. There was someone in the audience who was listening to your presentation, and they were asking about the applicability of digital and dynamic, but to a different market, right? So they're not the traditional SaaS company; they're actually a service provider, a telco. Can you talk about your experience in that particular market and the applicability of going digital?
Absolutely. I believe that, so the answer is, if we, go historically, customer success really started initially around SaaS, but that transition from SaaS to the broad market has happened 5 years ago. When you think about customer, digital experience, you think about users, you think about consumers. And users and consumers in telco, or if they buy phone service, or they buy internet service, or if they buy enterprise software, it's very similar. I agree that there's a lot of variability, but what we're trying to do in the marketplace, in the SuccessBlock marketplace, is basically demonstrate even industry-specific use cases and examples that will enable you to bridge the imagination gap between, because when we talk about enterprise SaaS onboarding, we have all these terms, but from digital operational perspective data, things are very, very similar. You just need to kind of apply the same method of getting the right, mapping the journey, digitizing the journey, figuring out the transition from digital to human and so forth, and then implementing that and measuring that. So it's highly applicable. Happy to share specific information if needed.
Great. We'll try and squeeze one more in. Someone was intrigued by your freemium model. Sounds like they've got their own version of that. Their question specifically is describing the customer engagement model that you use, but for your freemium customers.
Sure. It's a big one. Clearly, we are spending almost half a day every day to discuss it. But the first thing that we had to do is build a journey from a customer perspective. The first one was internally. They sign up, and then they use, and then they buy. But that's very internally focused. It doesn't really help you make decisions. So we flipped it around, and we talked about from our. Let me just give a quick one because we can't cover all of it. But one of the things that the initial version that we had is companies. We assumed that if we're going to give a tutorial of risk, everyone understands the risk management and so forth. People will get this. The immediate feedback that we've got is, I'm coming in, but I'm interested in onboarding, or I'm coming in, but for me, onboarding is digital, or I'm coming in, and for me, I'm looking for something else. So we actually connected the intent on the ads, on the the digital advertising, into an experience that is tailored into the relevant component in the marketplace. So if someone is responding to an ad about onboarding and they land in an onboarding landing page, after sign up, they will be directed to an onboarding experience, an onboarding success block, and that's going to give them the outcome. If they're looking for something else, they'll get different routing. So by marrying the intent that is expressed outside of even seeing Totango for the first time into their experience, we're basically making it easy for them to get started by not asking them to learn terminology and concepts that they're not ready to learn. They will learn them later, but initially it's just that. And then we continue from that on. Happy to take it one-on-one later on and explain how we do it specifically.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing all those insights today, Guy. Appreciate your presentation, and I know the community does as well.